FRAC Act, the Fracture Responsibility and Awareness of Chemicals Act to Congress by Chuck Schumer and Marie Sinke. Particularly, it seeks to close the Halliburton loophole by reclassifying hydraulic fracturing wells from boring wells to injection wells, which would specifically put them back under EPA regulation. More importantly, they're requiring most gas companies to completely disclose probate fracturing fluids as well as chemical formulas for the purposes of medical treatment to the EPA and to local physicians.
So natural gas development is often thought to be a much greener energy source than coal is because it would lead to less pollution and have lower CO2 emissions. However, this might not necessarily be the case. According to a study by Howarth and Grafia of this year, they're from Cornell, you've probably heard of them, they found that in the long run, the burning of natural gas would produce more methane emissions than coal would. And this has implications because methane is a more potent greenhouse gas than CO2, which means that it could actually contribute, or burning of natural gas could actually contribute even more to global climate change and have future health implications in that regard. However, this is not necessarily within the scope of our policy brief, but we felt it was really important to mention nonetheless.
So in looking at recommendations, we identified Ostron's Chemical Resource Management as a good framework for implementing ways to reduce community stress. And we identified that the shale gas is a finite resource, and using these design principles and focusing on certain parts will be able to come up with good recommendations.
So, due to opinions and recommendations from the EPA, the New York State DEC, and other leading officials in New York State, it seems like shale gas development is the future in New York State. And New York State does have the potential to greatly benefit from shale gas development if proper regulations were to be enforced and put in place. Progress has recently been impeded by several institutional failures, which we mentioned previously in our presentation, and we seek to try to fix those in our recommendations. Our first recommendation is to account for the Halliburton loophole by establishing transparency by making state environmental agencies the primary regulators and enforcers of shale gas development regulation. This would better cater to the needs of small towns, and the regulators would consider drinking water and health risks first before fracturing were to begin. Also, we advocate for local New York State employment. So we want any construction, transportation, or gas development firm involved in a new gas drilling in New York State to be local, and that every worker on the site be a resident in New York State. This in New York State. So this would effectively boost the economy because any expert that would normally outsource from a different state, we would recommend training for them by the companies so that they could become expert status and get a higher paying salary. And this would effectively abolish the boom and bust economy that's typical of shale gas development, regions of shale gas development. Finally, we really want education of the communities that this may affect, because if we were to provide reliable, neutral sources of information to the public, we would be able to inform them of not only the risks, but also the benefits that could come about, because most people don't always know all of the information when they're actually making a decision on this issue. Sometimes they get biased information. So this would help homeowners protect their rights and really understand the issue that's really going to be affecting them in the future. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions?
Okay, when you said 0.5% chemicals, what do you mean?
So, if you take a volume of frac fluid, it's 99.5% water. The 0.5% accounts for lubricants and proppants. Proppants being small particles like sand that get wedged inside shale fractures that hold the shale open and allow the gas to escape. The lubricants allow for shooting that stuff down 2 kilometers into the ground. So those are the chemicals that pose the risks, as well as the stuff it brings back up with it, like buried radioactive material.
When you said $1 million equals 6.9 jobs, can you explain what that means? I don't know.
Yeah, so another way of saying that is that for every one well, there are about 30 jobs created. So, yeah, it's just a different metric, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was just curious in a general sense, whether, are you for or against the process involved? I feel like you gave a very good balanced account of some of the positives and negatives, but I personally don't know, as a team, are you for or against the act of fracking itself?
Well, we tried to take a really objective viewpoint because we were just looking, just from talking to a bunch of people, interviewing them, and it seems that really officials up in Albany, their fracking is going to happen in New York State. So we wanted to take a more realistic stand on the issue. We wanted to identify the risks and the benefits, and then just kind of make a recommendation for what we really think is going to be happening, so it's more realistic.
I think you did that successfully then, because that's what I saw in the balance.
Thank you very much.